I'll entertain a motion that the Board of Selectmen come out of recess at 7:31 PM.
So moved.
Motion by Len, second by Anne Marie. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained. Chair votes aye, motion passes 6-0. Okay, we'll move on to item number 3, public comment. Is there any public comment? Is there any public comment? Okay, hearing no public comment, we'll close public comment. We'll move on to item number 4, approve minutes from the June 6th, 2017 regular meeting. Can I have a motion to do so? Motion by Len, second by Stefan. Is there any discussion?
Yes.
Karen?
Page, excuse me,
Ann is about to get red pen by the
page
teacher.
3. Yeah, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
It just jumped out at me. Beginning with Chairman Todd Andrews' letter, he references the Town Ordinance 11-2 for the sale of beer and wine. And on the next page, we talk about the waiving of that particular ordinance, 11.2. 11.2 is bicycles on a sidewalk. It's 11.20.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe they were asking about bicycles on the sidewalk.
You looking for another root?
I am looking for another root beer. This is delicious. Okay, so Leanna, can you make that quick change? Okay. Any other comments, corrections? No? Okay. Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained? Chair votes aye, motion passes 6-0. Okay, item number 5, First Selectmen's Report. The First Selectmen's Report is going to be an update on the road program, so Rory handed out these. You got the pretty little colored copies? Okay. I asked Brian to go through and update the numbers for the yellow and the tan sections. Okay, so those numbers are coming in at about 1.7 million for rounding. I then asked him to plot out the rest of 2017. And you can see he has listed in there Columbus, Bank, Bungay, from Derby Avenue to Old Town Road, and then from Old Town Road to Botsford, about 6,600 feet on Old Ansonia Road, Ryder Ave, Fox Drive, Chuckta, and West Street. Those are not the most recent numbers. Brian kept the original numbers in, but as you can see up top for the road reconstruction, we're looking at about $100 a square linear foot and $75 for mill and repave. So these road prices are going to come down in that section of 2017 plus. So Brian expects that we will be able to get the 4 roads marked in 2018 as well. That's Chatfield, High, Cedar, and Woodside Avenue. Woodside Avenue is kind of the wild card. That road is going to require substantial sidewalk work as well. So while it is our goal to have Woodside Ave completed, we're not sure if we're going to have enough money to do so. We're probably only going to be able to spend about $3.5 million of the money this year. So we should have about $1 million to do next spring as well. Okay. So that's just a quick update. I'll keep providing these updates as Brian provides those to me. Rory keeps updating it on the website as well, so you can certainly look there. And then we're doing our best to alert the residents as this is going on in the specific neighborhoods with code reds and letters and things like that. So, any questions on that? No? Okay. Thank you very much. Okay, item number 6 in our series of department heads coming in to present. We said we'd start off with the Public Works Director, so I asked Tony DePrimo to come in. You should all have a handout. Everybody have, Stefan? Karen? Yep, okay.
Good evening, everyone. Issued everyone a pretty detailed report on what we're doing, some projects we're working on. And I know Kurt has been pretty favorable on this software program. We've been trying our best to get this program up and running, but we've come to find that whoever set the program up when it was purchased before my time, there was a big mess with where the data was inputted in the system. We can't draw any work orders out of it, so it's just not functioning correctly. So I did speak with the program designer. He is going to come down, he's gonna wipe out the system. Now that I have compatible daily sheets that go out, we're gonna work in conjunction with my daily sheets that can make sense of what he's putting into the computer, where it kind of makes sense for whoever's inputting the information, so everybody's on the same page. So unfortunately, that's gonna be a little longer. I'm hoping to have it done and running for July, to start the new fiscal year. The next project that we're,
Mr. DePrimo, just ask a question. So you get it, so basically that's training to make sure everything gets
I'm
inputted
going to-
properly and everybody's on the same
so
page? Is that what I'm
once we
hearing?
have it all calibrated correctly,
Yep.
I'm going to, for the last time, train the necessary personnel that's going to be operating the system. Make sure they understand all the sheets, when they're supposed to have the call-ins. One thing he did say, that you always have to have somebody to work in the system.
Yeah,
You can't backlog.
right.
So that's concerning to me, but I think it could be worked out.
So, I'm sure you've already discussed it with him. Do you have a person, not just one person, but you're training a group in case
Right,
you have
yes.
turnover or transitions? That you don't have to go through this all over again? You at least have a couple of folks who know how to do it and they can retrain somebody else?
Right.
All right.
Well, my plans are, I'm hopeful that now that we have the two leads, like the iPads, if we could put them in the leads' vehicles in mine, we could kind of input information
So
while we're
it'll
out. in
sync
the
it
field.
automatically
Correct.
to the system, so you don't have to input the data second?
Well, we have it at our exposure out in the field, where we could do it while we're out in the field, or,
Right.
we're opening a work order, or closing a work
It's more
order.
efficient?
Be more efficient.
Don't get into 2015 too fast, Tony,
Yeah.
slow down.
So, but we can work on
Pretty good.
logistics,
Right.
when we get to that point. My concern right now is to get the information in correctly and get it running.
I think, and I don't want to speak for the whole board, but I will. I think if you get this up and running and you came to this board and said, we need 3 iPads
Yep.
to do live updates like that, I don't think you'd get any pushback from any person on this board. So, maybe Al, but not me.
So, yeah. The next project we're working on is that shared equipment. We'd like to have some usage on that, unfortunately, being we've had so many retirements and we've been understaffed. I like to prioritize our work so that we're always servicing the public, keeping the town clean. So when we have to transport that equipment, it kind of pulls off our important details of keeping the town clean for hauling purposes and such. So I felt that we just didn't have the manpower to take it on right now. So my thought process was just to let the other towns get some use out of the equipment, and then we'll take it on, hopefully August, September. So, but that, we'll be discussing, schedules and such, and I also want to provide some in-house training, at least on our part, for safety and how it's operated and accountability. What happens when it's damaged and such. So I want to get all that squared away too. Our AccuBrine machine is going smooth. We did find a spot in our garage that we're pretty agreeable on where it's going to go. Pending PO, I guess July,
After July, yep.
the numbers were turned into the Public Works Board. So some of the site work we could take on in-house in terms of concrete slab.
Anton, could you explain what the brine machine does, just so the board is aware of what its actual purpose is?
It really is public safety. The brine machine is a salt and water mix. And what it does is it buys you time. So let's say we get like a quarter inch of snow. It's just enough snow where it makes slick conditions. If I could treat the roads 24, 48 hours in advance of a snowstorm, or a half an inch or quarter inch of snow. If those roads are treated, I don't have to bring in a crew to go salt, because the roads are already treated. So it really buys us time and for safety. It also eliminates icing. So on our major hills in town, even if you know the temperatures are going to go down to the sub-zero, 0 degree weather, and you got concerns of icing, I can send out the brine truck to go brine hills or main roads, and it just, treats the roads, and it minimizes icing conditions.
And you can do that the day before during regular working hours,
Correct.
so it'll cut down on overtime and expenses.
Correct.
And
Is this the stuff that you see on the state road, the white
They use,
stuff?
calcium chloride.
Okay.
Some of it's brine, some of it's calcium chloride.
Similar concept, I think.
What also good about the brine is spraying, like overgrowth in the summertime. You could spray the overgrowth in the summertime and it kills the weeds, so you can also use it for other applications.
we don't like weeds.
No. You know, it's a lot cheaper than buying the chemicals, and maybe buying liquid friendly.
Yep.
So those are other pluses to it. So we're hopeful we're gonna have that in place and, used for this winter. New equipment purchases, you know, on behalf of the department, I just wanted to really thank the board, Selectmen. Kurt has been instrumental, Anne Marie, Sean Walsh. I mean, the equipment we're getting now is, it just speaks volumes of the work that we can do. So it makes our lives a lot easier, and it's, much appreciated. But,
But the more you produce, the more you'll get.
we're trying our best, Ron.
So it's a,
So I know, we've been pretty short-staffed, but, I think we've adapted pretty well to do more or less when we have to. So, this year, we're looking at, sidearm mower, which is a big, it's huge in our arsenal. And that's busy in the summer. But that's hopefully coming. We're getting another 5500 series truck, another crew cab pickup truck, and a large body snow truck, which is gonna be instrumental for us, for snow. And then we also bought a new snowblower for sidewalks, so this year I'm hoping we'll have additional seasonal staff, being that I will, plan correctly, schedule them, and we'll have newer equipment where we can combat these sidewalks.
good.
So, but all that's, you know, again, it's just phenomenal to have the equipment and be able to do the job with, best industry equipment, so. On behalf of my department, we would just like to thank the board for their help. And then, you know, we're also for parks, we might be taking on some of the Board of Ed. I will be entering into those meetings in July. So we are also purchasing some new lawnmowers, more weed whackers, more back blowers. We want to have the inventory for the staff that's coming on, because I, you know, when the guys come to work, they're going to work. But we want to be prepared for any additional work that we may see coming down the line. So that's all in motion. And then finally, you know, I've given you a nice detailed list of some of the things on our day-to-day of what we plan on doing for catch basins. We got a lot of curbing out there that we're doing. Our sweeping schedule, as you can see, we already swept the whole west side of town. All our main roads have been swept once already. We're proceeding now into the east side of town. Once we have our whole town swept, we will be focused to continue main roads, downtown, industrial park. That sweeper runs until it can't run anymore. I want it out there every day, because as you can see, it really helps keep the town clean. And that also goes for litter. Litter control is a constant battle for us, but at, you know, discretion, when it starts building up, we put a couple guys out there in the main arteries, around entrances and exits, to make sure it's all cleared out. So, it's stuff you can't ignore. But what I've done now, next month for the new fiscal year, I want to provide to the Board of Selectmen a detailed packet giving you a rundown of our operations, and where you can look at my spreadsheets and you can determine costs. You know, like I've broken it down for street cleaning. So it's subtitled "Everything We Do to Keep the Streets Clean." But now you can have, I categorized all that into one area where you can calculate costs and you have an idea, what is it costing us to keep streets clean? You know, what is it costing us to pick up litter? So I want to be able to be transparent and provide that information to you, because I think it's important. And I've also created a summary for construction repairs, the same deal. This will all be transparent for you, and you can look at these sheets and say, you know, this is what it's costing us. I even have the addresses of where we've been. You know, brief address on where we're going, what we're going to do. And then you have the man hours involved, costs. You'll be seeing, you know, columns for materials we use, cost combined. So I'm gonna try and get it down to where you can look at it any significant, any day. You have your man hours, your costs for any of the jobs listed. So that's important data that I like to be. And moving on, if you saw, we have another parks summary that we're working on. Again, it's the same thing. I want to be able to come to the board of selectmen with, you know, another summary for parks, and you can know what does it cost us to, you know, maintain one park, or what does it cost us to maintain a field. Historically, I don't think you've ever gotten that kind of data, and I think it's just important. So I'm trying to really break these statistics down where it gives you helpful data. It's transparency for the residents of the town.
I mean, the report's definitely Tony and myself.
Yep.
With planning, so we get an idea of where we are
Yep.
well in advance.
So, I mean, it's been a, you know, when I came in, I like to learn the operation. And then, as you can see some of these reports, it's quite a bit of information. So it's time consuming. I gotta figure out how to get it all on one sheet. I wanna make it user friendly where my staff can start working on it as well. You know, I mean, they can pick up the ball and run with it. And then, of course, when you know, I pass it out to you guys, everybody understands it. But it's just good, solid data, and, you know, I think it's important that those numbers are reflected. And finally, I mean, I don't know, my understanding, I don't think a report's ever been done to the state of Connecticut on our transfer station funds and stuff, or it's been quite some time. So, I mean, I came in and we get these stacked tickets up there where our scale's in use, but they're not really, there's no checks and balances. So I took all these tickets and again, I categorized them so I can produce, or, you know, what are we picking up at the curb for trash? What are we picking up for recycling? You know, I could provide you numbers now for incoming, lines waiting to dump residents. So these are numbers that you have to report to the state quarterly. We didn't have this data before, so now I'm going to start working these numbers where you have them every month. And I could also take these numbers and weigh them against our invoicing to make sure the invoicing checks out with our internal tracks. Because, you know, garbage is expensive, and we want to make sure, you know, it's very easy where one or two loads get away from us, and if you don't have somebody checking that stuff, and the garbage business, you're sure that, you know, one or two loads will sneak by every month, so you have to set a course that we have to monitor that stuff.
Yeah, is that being done?
Yeah, it is now.
Yeah.
$75 a month.
It is now.
$76.
So, I mean, that's all I have pretty much, but we're working diligently, as you can see by the report, and we're continuing on. I'm hoping for even better operations this winter. Our equipment is going to be a big plus, finally, and people coming in. Any idea when they're going to start?
We got
4 guys?
3 of the 4. We got all their stuff back, so the packets went out to them today.
Mhm.
Should be able to reach out to them tomorrow or Thursday. Obviously, 1 we're waiting for them to come back. The board identified a 5th candidate last night.
Yeah, I was,
But we'll probably hire that person if all goes according to plan at our next board session.
that's pretty much all I have. Questions?
Yeah, Tony, I really like these reports here. I know when I was on the Board of Public Works a few years back, it was something we were interested in seeing, you know, this kind of breakdown. In my mind, I had kind of a vision of seeing these reports reviewed annually, biannually, et cetera, to find, you know, the major problem areas and then address them from different perspectives. You know, the easiest one I can think of is litter. Where are people littering the most? Stick a cop there and maybe start issuing some fines. Do you have that already in place with regard to the planning?
We're going to get more detailed, but we
Mhm.
kind of know where our hotspots are.
Okay.
Because I want to get to a point where I'm going to generate schedules. So these are our hotspots. This is where I want you to go on a regular basis. Then in turn, I want to be able to report that to the board. these are our problem areas, we need help. Because, you know, the less we chase litter, the more we get other things done.
Sure.
So, but these, you know, this is stuff that's work in progress. It
Yeah,
does
we've been
take time.
discussing this for a while, especially with the littering. I mean, if that's enforced with the help of our police department, if you
Yeah.
can kinda, like Len was saying, indicate where the trouble spots are
Yeah.
and, you know, infractions,
It's
we'll
always
we'll
main
cut it down.
arteries, you know, it's the main arteries,
Yeah.
but I'll zone it in.
Yeah.
Usually when I put them out there, do a horse stretch. Well, that's a work in progress, and we'll have hot spots that we can convey to the board.
Well, the town definitely looks a lot cleaner.
We're trying, you know, that's huge for me, but,
It's, you know, 'cause people do litter a lot.
Yeah.
They just throw stuff right out their windows, whether it be
Mm.
alcohol bottles or
yeah. You know, it's,
papers or
McDonald's.
whatever it is. You guys are doing a good job staying on it.
we're trying, believe me, it's important, you know. People were looking at me like I was crazy when I came out, it's part of the job, it's a big part of the job. It's a common duty of public works, it's
Mhm.
paper pick, you have to have litter control. And, you know, I mean, I'm pretty proud of our town, because now you can drive out of this town and you see, notice the difference
Mhm.
Well,
from the
definitely.
surrounding towns, because a lot of municipalities ignore it.
Mhm.
It is important.
I have a question. And this is total ignorance on my part. I live on Great Hill near 334. We used to call it Fountain Lake. It's Great Hill Road where the lake is. It's constantly littered. Is that our job to clean that up, or is that the
You know what,
state?
I take it, I do it, because if you live on that road, you think that's the town of Seymour. I think it's right that I partnership with the state and take the litter out. Or run a sweeper down the road. Because, you know, I consider the state, they have their own challenges, and, you know, when they're up on the highways, a lot of times you can call them and they don't get down there the way you'd want them to get down there. So I'd rather have my guys take care of it and get it done, or rather than to fight with them. So I take it upon myself to spend a lot of guys.
And Karen, kind of along those lines, because our public works has been so proactive on state roads, and the state appreciates it with the issues that they're having, we had reached out to have the bridges on 67, so essentially Allen's Plumbing, and then the next one kind of right before McDonald's, how nasty they look, and Broad Street Bridge
Yeah.
painted. Within 2 or 3 weeks, we heard back from the state that they will do it. It will be done this year at some point. They can't say when, but they're going to come and they're going to take care of that at state expense, because they appreciate the fact. Now, I think part of it too is they don't want us touching the bridge because of, the lead paint and everything else in the rivers. But it's that partnership, I think, that's making it helpful, where in the past,
All in it together,
Yeah.
you know? I mean,
So they
I'm
appreciate
not
that.
gonna pave a road for them or do a big patch repair, but to pick up litter or run my sweeper down the street, I think it's the least we can do. And plus, I like to provide a service to you as the same as I would to provide a service to a resident who lives on a town road. It's only fair. And the town looks much better as a result, so that's what's important.
any other comments, questions?
Yeah, I have one.
Emery, go.
I came home today to a message, I didn't even notice it, the light pole on Middle Benham Road must have got knocked down in the storm yesterday.
North
Middle
Benham, Middle
Benham?
Benham?
Middle Benham.
Middle Benham Road.
Yeah.
You write that down? Middle Benham? Take a look at it.
Yeah,
Let's
it's
get
the
it,
only light pole
let's
on
get it
the
fixed before we
road.
buy it.
So
We'll check it out.
And also to wish you a happy belated birthday.
Same to you. Thank God your daughter's all right, I'm happy to see that.
He's a scary kid.
I called you old man until I realized I was older than you. That didn't work out
I
well.
thought we were the same age.
Yeah.
I feel better now.
So, but again, Tony, on behalf of the whole board, thank you for the effort that you and your guys are putting in. I think over the last year, there's been a noticeable difference, in public works. We've always had talented people. I think now we're utilizing them to their fullest capacity. So it's, yeah, so we definitely appreciate it. And again, like I said, I think I speak for the whole board. If you guys continue doing what you're doing, it's not difficult to get the equipment that you need to continue to do your job better. So you keep doing your part, and then we'll continue to do ours.
You're doing less with more, maybe if you keep doing a good job, we can help you do more with more. So,
Well,
think of that.
that's deep.
Well, if we can do less for more, maybe.
That's a Brunoism.
Than I have.
We'll do more for more.
Be careful about saying you could do less with
Yeah,
more, because
yeah.
then soon you'll be getting less.
That's right.
That's right. Trim.
Yeah.
It's paying dividends.
Trim. So,
I appreciate the recognition as well. It's a lot.
excellent. Thank you very much, Tom.
Thank you.
Okay, item number 7, discussion and take possible action regarding potential hiring of Assistant Town Clerk. In your packets, you have a memo from myself regarding the hiring of Assistant Town Clerk. In the message, I asked the Board of Selectmen to offer the Assistant Town Clerk position at Step 1 to Veronica Hoffman with an effective date of Monday, July 10, 2017. Veronica is currently the floater in Town Hall, and when I tell you we got extremely lucky to find her, I think that would be an understatement. She came with some experience, a good amount of experience in the assessor's office, some experience in the town clerk's office, and some experience in the tax collector's office. She's been an exceptional asset to the town, great member of the team. She can bounce from office to office. As we learned at our last meeting, Liz Capis is retiring at the end of June. So by union contract, we posted the position internally for 10 days. Veronica posted for the position, and she is extremely well qualified for the position. So based on that, we're not going to go to the outside. And I'd like to offer the position to Veronica. Again, moving her back to Step 1 of the Assistant Town Clerk wage scale, which is obviously a little bit higher than her floater's wage scale. We're going to reevaluate the floater position, assuming you vote in the affirmative, and I'll have some information for you guys at some point in July as to how we'd like to move forward. So with that, I'll entertain a motion that the Board of Selectmen offer the position of Assistant Town Clerk to Veronica Hoffman, effective Monday, July 10th, 2017, at the first step of the Assistant Town Clerk wage scale. Motion
Second.
by Len, second by Karen. Is there any discussion? It's going to be Leanna's new partner. So, okay, hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? The chair votes aye, motion passes 6-0. So Roy, can we send out an official letter to her tomorrow just to let her know? Okay, item number 8, discussion, take possible action regarding potential ordinance changes. Okay, we had a lively discussion, went a little longer than I had anticipated, so I apologize for that. I think we got some good feedback. So does anyone want to make any just general comments about any of the ordinances? Because the motion that we're looking for would be to send 1, 2, or all 3 of the ordinances back to the ordinance committee to give us the opportunity to bring people in to kind of hone in the language, have Rich take a look at it to make sure that it is appropriate, and then bring it back to the selectmen and then to another public hearing before anything happens. So I open the floor up to anyone's thoughts or comments.
I think pretty clearly we need to send all 3 back to the ordinance committee.
Agreed.
And I think it's as simple as that.
Anything you want to, any highlights or anything you want to make sure? I mean, I tried to take some good notes, but
I think everything that was discussed at the public hearing should be at least reassessed
okay.
and have
Discussed,
experts, if we can find them, brought in.
Okay. All right. Anybody else?
I do think that, particularly with regard to what the firemen were discussing today, obviously there's a lot of different levels of the issues, but with regard to operations, we certainly don't want anybody impeding operations. So I think, my initial read of the ordinance that was proposed was pretty straightforward. I would just say that make sure the ordinance committee takes that into particular consideration and ensure that we don't inadvertently impede operations between any of the emergency departments.
Well, with regards to the Communications Commission, the point that Deputy Chief Zanussi made was definitely a problem, but that was addressed internally. I'm not sure we need an ordinance to really clarify that.
Correct.
I sat down with the fire chief and the emergency management director, who also wears the hat of chairman of the Communications Commission. We talked that out. That shouldn't be an issue going forward. The other parts, I think there's some discussion that needs to be made. I kind of agree with you, Len. I think the role of the emergency management director is when there is an emergency. The fire chief is busy doing what the fire chief needs to do. The police chief is busy doing what he needs to do. The EMS director is busy doing what he needs to do. But there needs to be someone that's kind of with the first selectman that understands everything and can explain to them so the first selectman can make the decisions that need to be made in time of emergency. I don't think, Chief Lombardi does a great job. He doesn't have time to come and explain to me kind of what's going on and why they're doing it. So that's the role that I see the emergency management director playing. I think it's a little bit different than the way they see it.
Yes.
But we're lay people, and that's what these guys do. So I think they have obviously a better understanding, a broader understanding of it than us. So, to everyone's point, I think it's something that we need to discuss a little bit more. Have everyone come in. We'll hear from, John Cronin and Doug Zanussi and Mike Lombardi and all those guys. I know Tom Abe wants to come in, make some comment as well. So we'll invite all those people. It'll take the ordinance committee some time to work through that. But I would expect that you'll see something probably in the fall, realistically, just with vacations and stuff over the summer, getting the three of us together. Karen's got a nice vacation schedule planned. So Fred's not aware of that, but so.
We just got there.
You just got back, see? Things are good. All right, so if there's no other comments, at this point I'll entertain a motion that the Board of Selectmen move back to the Ordinance Committee the following three ordinances: Emergency Management Director, Communications Commission, and Historic Landmark Preservation Ordinance.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Len, second by Stefan. Is there any more discussion? Okay, hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, chair votes aye, motion passes 6-0. Okay, item number 9, update regarding small cities program. All right, so as we know, there's been some issue with the small cities program. We've been kind of working through this over the last couple months. The spot that we're at now is the determination of the town's relationship with its consultant. So I asked Rich to kind of do a deep dive on some particular cases that have been brought up. And Rich has gone and done that, and handed out to you tonight. You should each have the letter that he put in. Rich is obviously going to report on that and go through it. Once that is done, then the board's going to need to reflect on what it wants to do going forward and how the town of Seymour should handle the small cities grant. So that's kind of where we are. I'll let Rich go, and then we'll certainly open it up to question and comment, and then we'll determine a direction after that. So, Rich?
Thank you, Kurt. So our task was to, if you will, review the small cities grant program application through the consultant with respect to the three particular homeowners we've been talking about. To do that, we met with both Lisa Lowe and Tom Foley. We requested complete copies of the entire file on each of the three projects for which there were multiple complaints that have been made to this board in the past. And I'll take you through it. Because there was a lot of good in the file in terms of how they administered certain things, and then there could be some issues that may be apparent from some of the administration. But in any event, taking you through one of the homeowners' files, each project began with an initial inspection of the property and a creation of the scope of work. Now, you will recall that the original complaints are, we don't know what the scope of work is, we don't know what we paid for, we don't know what the cost estimates are. So that was the initial complaints that we heard some months ago. So I would say in all three files, that is not a valid complaint, okay? Because There was an initial inspection. A detailed scope of work and cost estimate was delivered to each homeowner. And for example, with this one homeowner, it was executed months before the contract execution by that homeowner. Then, 2 months later, a contract was executed. We've talked about the contract in the past. The contract, again, contains the scope of work and the cost estimate that had been provided and previously executed. It's incorporated back into the contract. All of these projects were competitively bid. The contract contains the language. We talked about the standard of workmanship language. That's one of the things that I personally don't like. I don't like that ideal. You know, it's not ideal, it's pragmatic. I don't know what that means, but it doesn't sound good to me, I can tell you that. Each of the contracts contains a binding arbitration provision. We've talked about that. Now, in addition to the contract, a pre-construction meeting was held and documented. And with respect to this one homeowner, it was held on a day different than the execution of the contract. A pre-construction meeting notification was executed by each of the 3 homeowners. That particular document says that the undersigned has on this date participated in a pre-construction meeting prior to the signing of a contract for the rehabilitation of my property. Now, one of the problems I have is that meeting didn't always occur before the contract. Sometimes it occurred shortly after the contract. I acknowledge and I understand the terms of the contract, the scope of work to be performed by the contractor, roles of the housing rehabilitation specialist, and my responsibilities during the construction process. I have been given an adequate reply to questions, and I'm aware that assistance will be provided by the staff of the housing rehabilitation program as requested. I further understand and acknowledge that the housing rehabilitation program assumes no responsibilities for the work performed and does not warranty any work performed. And then it goes on to say some of the other things listed on another page of the document that they affirm. The project for this particular homeowner was completed, and although certain issues were raised anecdotally to us, this particular homeowner went forward after completion and executed a certificate of completion that provides, quote, "The contractor has completed all work at my home to my satisfaction," end quote. So on this project, I'd say the documentation is, say, 90%. It's pretty darn good from start to finish. On the next one, the next project, it's the same sort of thing. Site inspection, detailed scope of work, executed again months before the execution of the contract with a cost estimate. Pre-construction meeting was held on the same day as the construction contract, same day as the contract was entered into with the homeowner. And this particular one, there is no certificate of completion, probably because the homeowner had complaints and decided not to enter into it. My recommendation there is that the pre-construction meeting be held in advance of the contract execution. But again, it's documented. There is a signature on it. It's attached. The third one, same process followed, same documents all the way through, with, again, the exception that unlike the first homeowner, this homeowner didn't execute a certificate of completion. This homeowner didn't get a sign-off because of a code issue, if you will recall, by the building official. The paving issues that we've talked about, we know what her response was. Her response was to bring in a professional engineer, Nafis and Young. Nafis and Young opined that the pavement was in fact sufficient and in accordance with industry standards. So the administration of the project, I'd say, is all within, all projects, I should say. When you look at the documentation in the files, it's all pretty standard. Signatures are there. I don't believe, based upon the contracts and based upon the sequence of events, that there really are issues with scope of work and cost estimates. Those were provided in advance. They're incorporated into the contract. If there are any issues, there are disagreements regarding pavement. She brought in a professional engineer who opined a certain way. Nothing has been done to the contrary. No demands for arbitration have been made of any sort, although one homeowner did make a complaint beyond us that is under review. So that's my report. The documentation, I mean, it's one homeowner, for example, 207 pages. The first one was more than 207 pages, multiple signatures. And I've attached the core documents to the letter so that you could review them yourself and take a look at them. So that's all I have.
And the core documents, if anyone wants to see those, there's just too many of them to print out for everybody, so we can email those to you. I mean, there's a,
It's okay.
it's a lot of reading.
Email a copy.
Yeah, Rourke, can you get out email copies
Yeah,
of that?
and you will see scope of work, cost estimate, contract, pre-construction meeting, all executed, and in one case, indeed, a certificate of completion to their satisfaction, not on the other two. That's what you have. And the part about the engineer and Nafis and Young, that's what we got from our meeting that Kurt and I attended. So that's what I have, folks.
All right, so let's start with questions of Rich with regards to the reports and the information that was just provided, and then we'll go from there. So I don't know if we want to go in order, if anybody just wants to fire something out. Anyone?
Just to be clear, we already covered this in previous meetings, but I want to be, on the record with it. There is nothing that the town of Seymour can do with regard to some of these specific issues that were brought up because we are not a party to the contract.
Yeah.
Right.
I believe we're not a party to the contract, and I don't recommend that the town of Seymour interfere with the contractual relations between parties to a contract. We have certain other obligations under the assistance agreement, and these are our consultants. We're not a party to the contract between the contractor and the homeowner.
To play off of that, actually, you mentioned our consultants. That is the one area, in my mind, at least from what I can see, that we do have some latitude and some discretion. And regardless of how, the things have shaken out with regard to the report itself, I'm not happy with how our residents have been treated by our contractor. I'm not very happy with how they've treated the town of Seymour. I think that their service has been lacking significantly, and I do think that that's something maybe we should talk about addressing as a board.
Well, and that's was going to be kind of my question to Rich. In your opinion, do you feel that based on the review that you've done, that the town has been well served through this process? I mean, if you're comfortable answering that.
I think it's been a workmanlike professional job that we've received, but there is nothing wrong with going out with a request for qualifications and taking a look and see who else is out there and, doing some interviews. Nothing wrong with going down that road. And maybe somebody does it better. This is our program. See, the one thing that is important for everyone to understand, Seymour enters into the assistance agreement. These are our consultants. They operate it. In a bigger city, this would be run through, maybe somebody's economic development office, or they might have a CDBG coordinator, things like that, or a housing rehabilitation specialist in the big cities. That's what I think they call them.
I think Bridgeport has that, right?
Bridgeport does have that. That's exactly right. Just happen to know that. So what I'm saying is these are our consultants. They are basically filling a role for smaller municipalities like Seymour and a lot of the other folks that they service. There must be other folks out there that do it as well, and there's nothing wrong with going out with a request for qualifications. I did not look and see when their contract is up with the town, but that's something we can take a look at, and in accordance with that contract, if you want, you go out with a request for qualifications, and you see who else does this work, and you do some interviews. You may decide to stay with the same people. You may decide to move elsewhere, but open up the process.
With that being said, Rich, again, maybe you can't answer this question, but is a change of consultant going to do anything, or is the problem with the system that we have in place that we need to change the way things are being done? Do we need to expect things quicker, have a tighter leash, for lack of a better term?
How long have you been doing this program? We've been doing it, I think you've been doing it for a
I think I
while.
believe it's 4 years.
Yeah.
This is the second
And-
big.
Yeah, and, I mean, you had 3 complaints here. I listened to all the folks that came in here. I sat here and listened to them. I took their complaints seriously. The one thing that I think is consistent is, even though you have signed documents, even though people are acknowledging things, even though people are reading through them, maybe and they're getting them, for whatever reason, there does appear to be at least some lack of communication, right? There's a lack of comprehension maybe about what was going on at different steps along the way. They're all sincere folks. I know that. I don't question their sincerity. I don't question what they've said. Documents in many instances contradict it, right? So we know there is, to some extent, a lack of communication. So surely that could have been done better.
Well, I just think to the case of when they're signing the initial contracts, if they don't see the contracts in advance, they're brought in, someone kind of brushes through it within 10 or 15 minutes, and it's it's not a huge document, but it's not a small one either. I kind of have issue with that. I think the contract should be provided to people in advance. Little things like that, the things that we could be
That's correct.
changing.
That's correct, and that was our recommendation
Right.
that we made, that both you and I made, that they should be provided in advance and have time. The only thing I'll say, on the flip side of that, if you will, is the core of that contract is the scope of work, right? Scope of work and your cost estimate. And in every case, that's been provided in advance. So that's something that they would have had and they would take away. There's a takeaway. You have it, you look at it, this is what's being done on my house, this is what it's going to cost. And, but certainly it's good practice to give people the documents they're going to sign in advance of a meeting. I agree with that, 100%.
Any other comments, thoughts?
Just to follow up, that was where I was going with this, was the communication issue, in my mind, is the problem. And I think whatever we do moving forward, whether it's with, the current contractor, or if we go to our RFQ and try to find somebody new, I think we need to underscore the interest that we have as a town in making sure that our residents know exactly what the heck they're signing, understand the legalese, even if it's a shortened version of it, understand what it is they're reading, understand what the scope of work is and what their expectations should be with regard to issues. So I think that needs to be, underscored, if you will, when we move forward with whatever we're going to do.
So what is everyone's thoughts on how we move forward? Is having Rich review the current contract to see where we stand, and to explore the process for going out for RFQs? Are we comfortable with what we have, and perhaps we want to create a new set of rules? Do we want to do both? Where does everyone stand? Just so I can give Rich proper direction for the next, 2.5 weeks till we meet again, so he can come back with some definitive information. Stefan?
Yeah, I think we should at least look into the process of the RFQ option. At the very least, there were some failings by the consultants. I think there's no doubt about that, just from a communications standpoint at the minimum. So if that could put them on notice at the very least that something needs to change. I think we need to do that.
Okay. Anybody else have any strong thoughts one way or the other? Karen, go ahead.
I agree with Stefan. However, I really wonder, with, we've spent, I don't know how much, a lot of time listening to these complaints, and I think we've been very patient and diligent in our, understanding of what these people are upset about. However, is any choice that we make going to be satisfactory?
To the 3 homeowners?
Yes.
Probably not. Because again, we don't have any authority based on Rich's determination to do anything about that. So what we need to make sure is that any resident that enters into this program going forward doesn't have a similar experience
Going forward.
going forward.
And I'd like to.
So with these 3 people, it's a done deal.
I think from the perspective of the work performed, I'm not sure there's anything that we could do based on what's been advised by town council.
They have the right to follow the dispute resolution process.
Right.
I mean, the one homeowner who signed off to his satisfaction, I'm not sure that individual should follow it, but perhaps the one individual with the code issue, there should be some resolution in a favorable way worked out there. Okay, and that's maybe where the consultant could help. That should be resolved, right? The paving issue, you have a professional engineer's opinion that it's sufficient. So I don't, they're going to have to counter that. And there's a dispute resolution process. So
The vast majority of people that have used the program have been extremely satisfied with what's happened. I think these 3 incidents have shined a light, though, on some of the weaknesses of the program and where issues could arise. So I think it's our responsibility to make sure that if there are these holes or these issues, that we correct them moving forward, so they don't have them, that these problems don't arise again. Now, to your point, does that, take care of the issues that these 3 homeowners have arisen and make them happy? Probably not. But I think they probably will take some satisfaction in knowing that they have improved the system and that they'll prevent other people from having that problem. And, one of the person with the issue has actually said that to me, that it's important to him to make sure that no one else has to go through what he's going through.
Well,
So,
I think he stated that multiple times.
Yeah.
And that's appreciated.
so. Right, anything? If no one else has any other specific comments, then Rich, I'm going to ask that you go through the agreement that we have with the consultant. And for our next meeting, which I believe is July 5th, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know what we were thinking when we approved that one, but, which is a Wednesday. That we, if you can come and give us some ideas as to what our options are at that point. Are we contractually obligated? Do we have the ability to go out to RFQ? What the steps would be, and so on and so forth, and then the board can make a determination.
sure.
Okay. And in the meantime, I'll work with Rich, because if we do go out to RFQ, obviously we're going to have some very specific criteria for that, and it's probably going to take a changing somewhat of the process. So we're probably going to have to write in some of these things that contracts need to go out, 10 days in advance before residents have to sign, those types of things. So we can put all that in any of this language, so we can go back through that with with an eye to correcting any of the issues that we've seen in the past. So, anything else? No? Okay. Thank you, Rich, for your effort, and we're glad to have you back from, you're big. He was on, that's right, Rich made the newspaper and all. So, Okay, item number 10 is appointments. We have one appointment tonight, Bonnie Wilkes, Municipal Aid. It's a reappointment. It's a 2-year term. It expires June 1st, 2019.
Second.
Motion by Anne Marie, second by Al. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, chair votes aye, motion passes 6-0. Next item is item number 11, and I will read tonight for Len, because he's battling a toothache. The following overpayment of tax payments in total of $560.88 needs to be approved for refund in accordance with the provisions of Section 12-129 of the Connecticut General Statutes, dated Seymour, the 15th day of June, 2017, Susan Bolin of our tax office. So at this point, I'll entertain a motion that we accept the tax collector's report as presented. Motion by Anne Marie, second by Stefan. Just under discussion, make sure no one has any conflicts. Okay, hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, chair votes aye, motion passes 6-0. Item number 12 is transfers. We have no transfers before us tonight. Item number 13 is correspondence. We have a few pieces of correspondence. We have the check register. We have 3 letters of tax jeopardy collection from the tax collector. And that is actually it for correspondence. Okay. Item number 15 is public comment. Is there any additional public comment? And just name and address for the record.
Yeah, Kevin Flaherty, 29 MS Street. One of my questions would be, what is the purpose of the warranty in this program then? Just like if you took a car off a lot. In other words, once you take the car off the lot, that's it. You sign the contract, you're good. There are warranties involved here. So why even have a warranty then? My vinyl right now is floating. I have floating vinyl by Lou Severino, who works for Isolo. Why was one of my permits taken out in January if this is all up to snuff here? You know, those are questions. I don't know how you're going to answer those things, but I don't know how you justify that if I sign a completion in October and I have a permit taken out in January. And like I said, with a warranty, what good is it then? I'd like to know why I got 2 different attendee sheets. Why do I get one attendee sheet? No attendees when the bids were announced. The second one comes in through HUD after I talk to them. All of a sudden, attendees' names are on there. And I won't bring the gentleman's name up because he's here, but he said he wasn't at the opening of the bids. And he knows he's present here, so I won't bring that up. But one other quick thing, security at the high school. I walk up there a lot. Your north end lights, I've addressed this 3 times. The 2, and I think Eversource is responsible for those on the telephone poles on the north end. I would get those corrected, because the only light working right now is over the Father's Club. I've called in that door open a couple of times. I've caught it up there. There's strange characters there. I walk at least 5 times a night up there. So when the lights on the timer go off, the 2, you know where I'm talking about at the far end?
Mhm.
There's 2 lights that should be put back on. I let Rick Kearns know about that and the janitors, but I would address that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Roy, can you make a note of that so we can reach out to Rick tomorrow? Is there any other public comment? Jimmy? Excuse me, James.
Jamie Brennan, 124 Bungay Road. Just quick on that architectural and historic preservation incentive ordinance, or whatever it's called. I would, if we're looking to help preserve, I'm not sure that we need it. We talked about the David Humphreys house. We talked about the Matthews house. They all managed to survive without an ordinance telling people what they can do and can't do with their property. Whenever somebody goes to a demolition aspect, there has to be some kind of issue involved. I would encourage that rather saying you can't do with your personal property, say what can we do to help you preserve it? What's the reasons, rather than trampling on the rights, of best use of property. See if there's something that could be worked out. Maybe they don't have a use for it for what it is now, but it could certainly be used as something else that works in with the town's plan or something like that. Thank you.
Is there any other public comment? Is there any other public comment? Hearing no other public comment, we'll close public comment. We'll move on to Selectmen's public comment, and we'll start, as always, Stefan.
Thanks. Just quickly, I would like to just reiterate the importance of people, coming here and voicing their opinions under public comment. I think tonight has been a clear example of why it is so valuable to do so. We've followed up on a lot of issues, not necessarily to everyone's liking. We heard from people for about an hour today on ordinances, which is really good, because if you look at those ordinances without any kind of feedback, they look fine to us, I think, pretty much across the board.
Very good point.
So it's really important to have people come here and talk. And, it's nice to call, the first selectman's office or whatever, but it's better, I think, for everyone to, get out here in the public space, so you can have the full board and the public hear from you. And it's really a good way to get things done and to highlight issues that we might not know about otherwise. So I definitely appreciate everyone who comes. I try to urge everyone I talk to who has an issue to come and bring it before us. So while we can't always get a resolution people want, at least we have the opportunity to look at it. So thank you.
Thank you, Stefan. Karen?
I have two things. One, I had asked that Fred Masori appear at this meeting. I took the time to go down to your office to get a copy of his job description, which is dated 2007. I'm not sure whether this is still relevant.
It's dated 2007. We updated all the job descriptions
I thought I saw a date
when I
on
took
here.
office.
Oh, okay, all right. Well,
Well, but Karen, in defense, when HR came in, she added a lot of the necessary HR things that we never had in our job descriptions. So I'm not saying that the job duties and functions is not the same as it was way back when. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying the descriptions themselves have been updated. That's the new format.
okay,
But that may not have changed, like I said, job descriptions, functions, things like that.
right, okay. But it does raise some questions for me. So again, I'd like to reiterate, I have some questions for Mr. Masori, which I would like answered. And it's not just me. I'm bringing to you comments that I have received from other people, and who either can't be here at this meeting, are too shy, or for whatever particular reason.
Oh, understood.
They're not here.
We will have Fred at a meeting. We couldn't, he was unable to come tonight, so we had Tony come in place, because I know you wanted to hear,
Yes.
not you, but the board,
Yeah.
wanted to hear from other people, so.
I appreciated that presentation very much.
Yeah.
That's very interesting to me.
But going forward, we're gonna make sure that there's at least one department head, committee chairman, something like that at a meeting to report on something. One of the ones we're gonna have at the next meeting as well is the safety committee, which probably none of you even know we have.
No.
The safety committee is gonna come and give a little presentation on what we do to keep our employees safe, to help try to keep workers' comp issues down, those types of things.
Okay.
So, but yes, Fred will definitely, the economic development director, if not the next meeting, the meeting after that, absolutely.
Okay. The last thing I have, and you're going to have to bear with me for a minute or two. I did bring you soda, so.
Karen, you
No,
can talk
it-
all you want, because I still got a couple bottles.
At our last Board of Selectmen meeting, we were asked to make a decision regarding a request by Citizens Engine Company Number 2 to approve the sale of beer and wine in French Memorial Park. My understanding is that there was ruling by Town Council, actually 2 rulings by you and Warren. That was the information I was given.
Just Warren.
Okay.
Just Warren. Yeah.
And that you had looked into it as well.
Yes, we got the deed.
And so my remarks are not to try and change that, but simply to express some frustration on my part. So please
absolutely.
bear
Go
with
ahead.
me. None of us had the opportunity to prepare for this vote at the last meeting, as there was confusion regarding, at least on my part,
Mm-hmm.
the authority, whether or not we had the authority to grant this request. There was no time for due diligence to educate ourselves with regard to this matter. I myself have believed for many years that a stipulation prohibiting this action was deed restricted. Even without examining the deed, I believe that by custom and practice, it was not allowed. Now, let me also please add, I got a copy, thank you.
Can we just define what the "it" is, just for people who may not have been here? Can you just define what the issue was?
I thought the request by Citizens Engine to approve the sale of beer and wine in French Memorial Park.
Just making sure.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay,
Yeah.
no, that's fine.
Yep.
In the meantime, I got a copy of the deed, such as it is. It's in cursive. For those of you, it's longhand. It's written out by a notary public. Extremely hard to read. I've had this since last Friday with a glass trying to read this handwriting. It's very, very difficult. And even today, I found something that I hadn't seen before. I believe we must be vigilant with regard to matters like this. I believe that the oath I swore when I was elected, when you swore me in, included an obligation to carry out the ordinances so passed by the town and any request by persons such as this who grant to the town land as a gift.
Mhm.
There is an ordinance with regard to the issue of alcohol in a public park, which no one referenced to my knowledge during our discussion 2 weeks ago. More importantly, there is an instrument executed by representatives of the French family, duly recorded, allowing for the transfer of 13.5 acres of land to be used as a family public park. There are penalties for violation of the ordinance and deed, which is what I found today, the violation in the deed. Ultimately, the heirs of the French family may revoke the gift if they feel the town has not honored their requests. A fact which I believe no one on this board was knowledgeable about at the time of our discussion 2 weeks ago. The language, and I have it, I didn't make copies, but I certainly have it right here. And I can try to read it to you, but that's what it says. They can take the land back.
Mhm.
The language of both the ordinance and deed gives the Board of Selectmen in deciding the matter no definition of what a public park is. And I think we all learned from Bill Clinton that definitions are extremely important.
Yes, we did. Yes,
The-
we did.
Thus complicating the issue. The board therefore must act in good faith in granting an exception. On a personal note, I would like to say that I was asked why I wanted to, and I'm quoting, this is not me speaking, I am quoting a person who called me up and said to me, "Why do you want to piss off the firemen?" Nothing could be further from the truth. I have great respect and appreciation for our firemen, our first responders, police, the work, their dedication, and their concern for the town. It has nothing to do with it. I simply want to say, as a matter of principle, shouldn't we know what we're talking about before we capriciously act on a matter that will certainly set a precedent for other groups in the future? And to wrap up, I'd like to say that if you feel reprimanded, I know how to play baseball.
I'm still trying to figure out what capricious means. Rory? No, I'm just kidding, Karen. Well, two things, Karen. First, let me put your mind at ease. I talked with the fire chief, with Pat Lombardi, multiple times after our meeting, and I can assure you that they never once said, what is Karen doing? Why is she doing that? Never once did that come out of their mouths. So I don't think there's any worry there.
That was not my intent.
And I can assure you the firemen don't feel that that was your intent. So if that puts your mind at ease a little bit.
It does.
You know, with regards to that, you know, I spoke to the firemen about the timing of this and why they were waiting essentially till the last minute
Yeah.
to have this. They understood that. I said it would have been nicer had you come to us in, you know, April or March. You knew this event was coming up, and they were aware of that, but, you know, they have a lot going on and that type of stuff. You know, I was always under the impression, a little differently than you, that we could never charge an admission fee to French Park, and I was not ever aware of anything with regards to alcohol. But since you brought it up, we wanted to just take the time to do the extra due diligence. You know, I agree with your comments. That document is nearly impossible to read. It's from 1900.
Yes,
when it was-
1900.
Yes, it's a 117-year-old document. God bless Warren, he's able to read it. Maybe Warren was born back in 1900. There's a high probability of that. So, and Warren said that embarrassingly, I can actually read this document. So, you know, certainly the intent was not to have the selectmen vote on something that they were not prepared for. As you know, we generally like to present something and then vote on it 2 weeks later. This, unfortunately, we were kind of pressed
Yeah.
for time. They needed to have an answer right away. They couldn't wait until this meeting. You know, and that's why I asked the board for the authority to make the decision after all the appropriate research was done, which Rory, Warren, and I did do. So I certainly, you know, understand your concerns and appreciate your concerns. It's something that we'll try to make sure doesn't happen again, but sometimes these things are outside of our control. But, I mean, I just want to recognize your comments on that. So, okay. Anything else?
Thank you. No, that's-
And again, thank you for the, this is made with real sugar cane, so I probably won't sleep for 4 days. Len? Yeah, Len's a trooper tonight. So, Al?
I'm good.
Emery? Emery's good. Just one thing for me, the town of Seymour's, I think you all know, won an award last week from the Boys and Girls Club for Champion of Youth Award, which was certainly a great honor. Stefan and Anne Marie and their significant others, we'll say. Don't want to say spouses. At least not yet. That, I'm in trouble for that one. It was certainly a nice award. It was nice to have Anne Marie and Stefan there with me. They came up and received the award. And I think the decision that this board made to bring the Boys and Girls Club to Seymour has been a very good decision. It takes care of a large population of families that need that type of support, that after-school care, and even summer programs. So just want to commend the board for its foresight in doing that many years ago. So, Rich, anything you'd like to add? Rory, anything we've missed that you're aware of? No, and again, I apologize for my attire. It was a long day of washing cars. Rory, of course, didn't pick up a sponge once, but was there in spirit to take pictures and cheer me on. So with that,
Make a motion, Sharon.
Second.
as always, motion by Anne Marie, second by Karen. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, chair votes aye, motion passes 6-0. Mark the meeting closed 8:46 PM.